What's up, space pirates? This is your Admiral, the decidedly debonair Dr. Disaster. And the upcoming Superman movie has had me pretty skeptical for a while because, quite frankly, James Gunn always seemed like a terrible choice to write for this character. The dude's writing suited Guardians of the Galaxy, and it suited Peacemaker, but only because the characters in those stories worked pretty well with silly and sarcastic one-liners.
There's a little pee coming out of me right now.
The stories that worked for James Gunn were the kind which didn't take themselves too seriously. Now, Gunn is not a millennial, but his writing on these superhero stories has been quintessential millennial writing. If you're not familiar with the term millennial writing, which I absolutely despise, by the way, but if you don't know what it is, here's a quick definition for you. It's a slang term that refers to a type of writing primarily in video games that is distinguished by an unnecessary abundance of sarcasm, meme, and pop culture references and cliche quips such as Marvel one-liners. Examples of this would be when a character says something like, "So that just happened," or "That sounded a lot better in my head," or "Guys, he's right behind me, isn't he?" Millennial writing refuses to take itself seriously.
That's actually the best explanation I've heard as to why Disney movies all suck now.
And the thing is, Superman has always carried with him a ton of gravitas. That isn't to say that a little bit of tongue-in-cheek humor doesn't work with the character, but he is larger than life in the eyes of everyone around him in his world. He is a symbol of decency and hope and all that sort of heavy thing. And I was afraid from the moment that this project was announced that James Gunn was going to screw it up by getting the tone all wrong.
Look at that. I was right. Note the lack of surprise.
The review embargo for this movie is not supposed to be lifted for a few more days, but for whatever reason, the Daily Beast released their review for this movie early, and it sounds like it's going to be exactly what I was worried about when it comes to this film. They blasted the movie in this review for being superficial and silly, and apparently it's overstuffed, meaning they threw in a whole lot of extra characters just for the purpose of building their rebooted DC universe. Basically, the movie sounds a bit like a big trailer for all the future movies that they want you to see. This critic here tried defending the film, but he did so on Blue Sky, so I think we can disregard his corporate ass-kissing stupidity. At this point, I'd love to be wrong, but I'm willing to bet that for most of us, when we see this film, our reaction is going to be something like this. Alright, me hearties, make sure that you hit the like button on this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I've begun uploading some content onto Rumble as well, so make sure that you follow Dr. Disaster on that site too. Also, give me a follow over on X, where my handle is Dr. Disaster 1. Anyhow, let's look at this Superman review, which was pretty damned scathing. The review itself was taken down because it seems it was only released early accidentally, but the damage has been done. This early review has really set a pretty negative tone for the movie early on, especially since it seems to coincide with the fears that most of us have had for this film at the outset. But let's read about this review in this article here from Cosmic Book News. The article says, "The Daily Beast broke the July 8th embargo set by Warner Brothers for those outlets that got to see press screenings. Their review is titled, 'The terrible new Superman movie is the final nail in the grave for the superhero genre.' The review is said to have been up for 5 minutes before the Daily Beast took it down, but the review is gaining waves and going viral on social media. Screenshots have surfaced online where the Superman review blasts Gunn's flick, which introduces fans to David Corenswet as the new Man of Steel and is meant to spearhead the DCU. And then, in the next paragraph, it says that Variety has also backed up the claims and said the flick is silly. And what they're talking about is this here. Variety wrote a review for the movie Heads of State, and in it they referenced the Superman movie, calling it silly. This image that you see here has been taken down, but you can still find it on the Wayback Machine archive. But, reading on, the Cosmic Book News article says, the Daily Beast review harshly criticizes James Gunn's Superman, calling it an overstuffed, chaotic mess that fails to revive the superhero genre. Key points include the film is overcrowded with characters, heroes, and villains that are thinly developed. Supporting roles like Maxwell Lord, Supergirl, and Mr. Terrific are introduced without much substance, despite sharp visuals and the use of John Williams' Superman theme. The movie lacks emotional depth and feels superficial and silly, much like the criticized versions of Justice League. The story is fragmented, tossing Superman from one bizarre situation to another without clear narrative cohesion. Plot points include an interdimensional prison, a partnership with Metamorpho, and saving a giant-headed infant. Gunn's humor, praised in Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad, falls flat here, aside from some light moments with Crypto the Superdog. So it is just like I feared. James Gunn is fairly one note. He is fairly one note as a writer anyhow. He feels the need to cut through any tension in a story by including silly and cliched one-liners. Admittedly, that worked really well in Guardians of the Galaxy, Suicide Squad, and in Peacemaker, but I would argue that a lot of the success of those Guardians movies was owed to the way that Chris Pratt absolutely carried those films. Pratt did a nice job of balancing the silly and the serious, and to a lesser extent, I would argue that this approach to storytelling worked pretty well in Peacemaker because John Cena also does a pretty good job of balancing the silly and the serious. But I highly doubt that David Corenswet is going to be able to pull off a Chris Pratt as Star-Lord type performance. And even if he did, I mean, for cripe's sake, we're talking about Superman here. This is about as far removed from the Superman character as can be. And even if it isn't Superman himself being silly, even if it's just the world around him that ends up being silly that comes off that way, that still doesn't work with this character. The nature of Superman and the best stories that are told surrounding this character would have required James Gunn to be serious and earnest in his storytelling for once in his professional life, but it sounds like the dude just couldn't do it. Here are the last key points about the film from Cosmic Book News. The tone swings from Snyder's dark approach to a bright cartoonish style that the review calls a Saturday morning cartoon come to overstuffed, helter-skelter life. Superman himself is reimagined as a laid-back, well-meaning optimist who says dude and saves squirrels, rather than a Christ-like figure. The review concludes that Gunn's attempt to refresh the DC universe falls flat, suffering from genre fatigue and failing to lay a strong narrative foundation. Suffice to say that James Gunn has one arrow in his quiver, and with this story it sounds like he missed the mark. This is absolutely not the person that you would want in charge of an entire comic book universe filled with all kinds of characters who aren't carbon copies of Star-Lord and the Guardians of the Galaxy. But I'm gonna leave it there. Do you think the James Gunn Superman movie will be good? Drop your thoughts into the comment section below, and we will talk there. Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your Admiral is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.